Fortnite has had a lot of assault rifles in the game throughout the past 6 years, and today I'm going to be ranking all of them to figure out which one is the best. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and also make sure to use code WATSO to support me. Let's get straight into it. Alright, let's start with the normal ARs. They're going to go in around the same spot, because they are literally just the same gun, A tier. Basically, they're just like standard ARs, both of them, SCAR and like the normal AR. They used to be the same weapon, and now they're just different weapons with the exact same stats. They're like the original AR. So yeah, there's not really much else to say about them. So they're solid guns, A tier. Burst, normal burst. I'm gonna go B tier with this. There's really no reason to use this one, right? So it's like, once they got rid of once they turned like the AUG into like the red dot, it kind of just like feels worse. Also, I forgot to mention, I am ranking all of these weapons in their current state. So what they were last time they were in the game, or how they are currently if they're accessible and creative. The normal burst is the FAMAS, I should say. The FAMAS it's kind of mid, not gonna lie. Just something feels off about it whenever you're using it. If you want to use a burst rifle, you'd much rather use an AUG. Speaking of burst rifles, we have the chrome rifle, and I'm gonna put this thing in B as well. See, the chrome rifle was interesting because it would upgrade the more you used it, the more damage you dealt. And you could get all the way up to mythic with this thing, and that's pretty unique. I just think that it was kind of weird how the more you upgraded, the less damage it did, because like it would, so like the normal one, like the gray one shot, I believe like 2 bullets or something. Green, I think, was low rarity actually. Like shot 2 bullets, and then like the mythic one shot like 5, which is kind of crazy, but it also did less damage. I thought that was interesting, and it's kind of a gimmicky weapon, I'm not gonna lie, but you know, it's an interesting weapon. Combat AR, I'm gonna go A tier. It's definitely a unique weapon, but I'm pretty sure this weapon has just the exact same stats as the MK7, but it's just got no scope, and that's really like the only difference. I mean, it did come out first, but yeah, I feel like a little bit of that interest kind of lost when the MK came out like a season later. So I mean, it's still a good weapon. I'd still probably take it over the burst or the chrome rifle, but yeah, I think it's just overshadowed by the MK. Okay, normal drum gun. We're not talking about the mythics with this one. This is probably C tier. I know you're gonna say the drum gun's not an AR, even though it's technically classified as one. That's why I'm putting it on this list. If I do an SMG tier list, I'll probably put the drum gun on that too. The drum gun currently, if you're using creative, is just kind of mid. There's really no point in really using it over any other AR or SMG. So for that reason, I'm gonna put it in C tier. The hammer AR, I'm gonna throw this thing in B tier. This thing was just like a worse SCAR, basically. It had less bullets in the clip, and I'm pretty sure it also did less damage, so it just really wasn't. If the SCAR and the hammer were in the game at the same time, there would be really no point in running the hammer, if I'm gonna be honest. It was interesting. You could get like a mythic hammer from the saplings, but you know, other than that, there wasn't really anything interesting about the hammer. It's just kind of like a worse SCAR. Okay, next weapon, the Havoc AR. I think we all know where this one is going. This is probably like the worst AR they've probably introduced. Actually, no, that's a lie. It's the second worst AR they've ever introduced. We'll get to the worst one later. But the thing with this one is, I don't think this one was designed to be bad. I think it just like ended up bad, and they just kind of are sticking with it for some reason. I don't know why. There's a better suppressed AR that they could use, but they just aren't using it for some reason. So this is going in F tier. It's like the worst gun in the game right now. Okay, next we have the heavy AR. I'm gonna put the gray through blue one probably in B, and then I'm going to put the purple and gold one in A. C, it was better when the heavy AR first came out, when it was blue through gold originally, because it did like a 96 headshot, but then they nerfed it down to gray through blue for some reason. Don't know why they did that, it wasn't very popular, but then they added like a new purple and gold one, and you know, it wasn't as good, but still a nice weapon. I believe it's also when they added side grading with this weapon. You could like side grade the SCAR to like the heavy AR. It was interesting, but I don't know. I feel like they should bring side grading back and do something like that again. That'd be pretty interesting. Alright, next up is the infantry rifle. I'm gonna put the gray through blue infantry rifle in D tier. This thing isn't really that good. Even after they buffed it to make it hit scan, it's just still not good. I'm gonna be honest, this thing... Actually, you know, I'll put it in C tier, because I feel like it's like on the same level as drum gun. I'm gonna put it below the drum gun. I'm actually gonna reorganize these tiers a little bit. So there you go. So yeah, the infantry rifle, the lower rarity one, it's only got 8 shots. You can't really do much with that. Damage isn't as high. So yeah, if you find one of these, you just kind of want to upgrade it as soon as you can. It's like kind of mid. I don't know. So yeah, that's why I'm putting it in C tier. So and then we have the higher rarities. The higher rarities are actually pretty good. I'm probably gonna put them above the gold heavy. It's pretty good. You got 2 extra shots, which is a lot considering what type of gun this is. Does more damage. I'm pretty sure the first shot accuracy is faster on this one too. Could be wrong about that, but that just adds more onto it. It's a solid weapon. If you see this, you might as well pick it up. It's definitely not the best AR you can take, but it's nice. If you have good aim, I would definitely recommend using an infantry, a purple gold infantry. Alright, so you know how I said the Havoc wasn't the worst AR in the game earlier? Well, that's because the makeshift is. The makeshift rifle is literally designed to be a bad AR. It has worse damage than the normal AR. It has no first shot accuracy. I'm pretty sure the clip size on this thing's smaller too. It's just like so bad. It's one of the reasons that chapter 2 season 6 was so bad, is because like most of the weapons were just so awful and they just did not feel good to use, and this is a prime example of one of those weapons. There's like no reason you'd want to use a makeshift rifle over any other AR in the game, even the Havoc. It's the most pointless weapon they've ever added, not gonna lie. Alright, next we got the MK Alpha. So, I don't know where to rank this one, because it's pretty good, but I don't know if it's like MK7 level good. I feel like they're like on par with each other, because this one basically just trades out fire rate for damage, and I think this one's easier to use if you're like a controller player. If you're a controller player, this thing's probably better than the normal MK7, so I'm actually gonna put it in S tier. You know, it's basically just like the MK7, which is a really good weapon already, but they made it better for controller, and I think worse for keyboard and mouse. I'd probably say something like that. Yeah, it was definitely interesting. It was the best AR last season. I mean, there wasn't really much competition, but yeah, I think it's definitely one of the better red dot ARs in the game that they've introduced. I do find it kind of strange that they decided, instead of making a new AR, just basically reskin the MK7, which is kind of interesting. And speaking of the MK7, I'm gonna put it probably above the MK Alpha. The faster fire rate definitely helps with this one. I definitely think it might be slightly better than the MK Alpha, even though I do play on controller, it just has better damage overall, I think, and you're gonna get more shots off, so yeah, I think it's just slightly better than the MK Alpha. Alright, next up is the Primal Rifle. I'm gonna put the Primal Rifle in above the Hammer AR. See, it had good damage, but it wasn't really made for assault rifle ranges, you know what I'm saying? It did around, I think, in highest rarity, it did around like 37, 38, which is pretty good, but the accuracy just wasn't that great on it, so that's why I really can't put it above B tier. It's just, a lot of the prime weapons just weren't all too amazing. It's like, there's no reason to run a primal rifle. There's better ARs, and if you want to run like a close spray weapon, then just run like a primal SMG if you have like the primal stuff, right? There was really no purpose to this weapon, so yeah, I'm gonna put it in B tier for that reason. It was good, but there was no purpose. Next, we got the Pulse Rifle, and I'm probably gonna put this thing in B tier, above the FAMAS. You know, it was good. The hip fire was nice, the ADS was interesting, it's definitely more of a gimmicky weapon. You know, that's really all I can say about it. It was like a gimmick weapon. It had decent damage, but it was definitely not like a standout weapon, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, I'm actually gonna talk about the Stark Rifle here for a second, because it's basically the same thing. You know, interesting gimmick, but, you know, there's better ARs to use. Okay, next up is the Ranger AR. This is just a worse AK, so, you know, it does work as an AK, but it's not as good. I'll probably put it below the FAMAS. There's really not much to say about it. It's an AK with worse damage. That's all it is. It's not really too interesting. It was introduced at the same time as the MK7, which was definitely way better. There was no real reason to really use this thing over that. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in B tier. Okay, next is the Red Eye Assault Rifle. I'm probably going to put this somewhere in A, probably above the normal ARs. Red dot weapons are typically just always better because they're more accurate, they're easier to hit shots with, there's like little recoil on them. They're just like solid weapons all around basically. There's really no reason not to use a red dot rifle over a normal rifle when they're in the game. The only exceptions I'd say for that are our next weapon, the scoped AR. I'm going to put these in low B tier. I actually really liked these weapons when they were in the game, but their competition now isn't all too fair, I guess you could say. The other red dot weapons are just like so much better, and I might as well throw the thermal AR in here while I say this. There's really no reason you'd pick these up when they were in the game when compared to any other AR, you know what I'm saying? I mean, if you were going for accuracy, I guess you might go for these, but some of these weapons had really high recoil, like the thermal had really bad recoil, I'm pretty sure, which was really interesting considering it's a red dot weapon, but, you know, what can you do? They're just, like, not the greatest. They're definitely elements of their time. They're definitely just, like, the alpha stages of the modern red dot weapons we get now, I guess you could say. The sideways rifle, I'm gonna put this in the bottom of C tier. This weapon was kind of mid. It had like a similar gimmick to the chrome rifle, but I think the weapon itself just wasn't as good. It was sort of like an infantry, but it was like automatic, which doesn't really work for an infantry type weapon in my opinion. It did have an interesting gimmick where the more you shot it, like, I'm pretty sure the more damage it did, which is interesting, but I just don't think it was really worth running that over like a Scar, which I'm pretty sure was in the game at the same time, or a Burst. So yeah, I'm gonna put it in C tier. Okay, next up is the Striker Burst, or the Red Dot Burst, and I'm gonna put this in S tier with the MK7 and MK Alpha. It's basically like, if you took the AUG was already good, and they just gave it a red dot sight, making it easier to hit people with. This weapon is just way too good. It was, when it was in the game, it was definitely a top tier weapon. You could definitely get away with running this over an MK7, but I do think the MK7 was slightly better, but it's close with all these weapons. I think they're all around the same level, which is why they're all in S tier. I definitely think this one was centered more towards controller players instead of like keyboard and mouse. Yeah, I definitely think it was one of those weapons that, you know, will probably go down as one of the best weapons they've ever added. Okay, next is the Suppressed Scar. This is just the better suppressed AR in the game. I don't know why I don't bring it back and just have it replace the Havoc, considering their gimmick is just the same thing. They're suppressed weapons. I feel like this weapon would also really fit this season because, you know, it's like the heist theme, sneaky, whatever. And they could easily just replace like the Mythic Havoc at, I believe it's Relentless Retreat, with a Mythic Suppressed Scar, which would be interesting because we haven't actually seen that, and it would just be something nice. Be a nice weapon. Hasn't been in the game for a long time, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it was like last in the game like Chapter 2, late Chapter 2, which is a long time ago now. And yeah, I definitely would like to see it come back, but I don't think it's as good as any of these ARs in the S and A tier. Okay, next up, TAC AR. I'm gonna put this one probably in A. They made it a red dot weapon in Chapter 4, which was interesting. I think it definitely made the weapon better, but I think one of the pros that the TAC AR had when it was originally added was that it was more of an SMG type weapon. You know what I'm saying? Like, it used mini ammo, like it wasn't as good from far ranges. The damage drop off was pretty bad. It also did less damage, but it was good because you could conserve ammo, you could save inventory spaces with this thing, and I'm pretty sure it had a slightly faster fire rate than the Scar at the time. So it definitely added a nice bit of like contrast and like definitely a nice little spin on the gameplay, which was interesting. I think it's still good in its current form with the red dot, but I think that kind of removed some of the purpose of the weapon. So that's kind of what I have to say about the TAC AR. Alright, the Twin Mech AR. The Chapter 4 red dot weapons are pretty good. I think this is probably the worst in S tier. It's still really good, but I don't think it's as good as any of these three weapons. It is new, so it might be just like the new weapon bias. You know what I'm saying? It's definitely really good. You can hit a lot of shots with it. I think it might be better for keyboard players, which, like, these red dot weapons really like to lean towards one input method, which is interesting. Like, half of them will lean towards keyboard, like the MK7 and the red dot, and like half of them will lean towards controller, which is like the MK Alpha and the Striker Burst. But I definitely think it's definitely like a top tier assault rifle. I think this weapon is probably going to be one of the more popular weapons. Also, I think the Twin Mag gimmick is pretty interesting. It allows you to like get like really quick reloads off, so you don't really have to worry about any of that. And yeah, solid weapon. If they don't want to bring back the Suppressed Scar, they should definitely replace the Mythic Havoc at Relentless Retreat with this, in my opinion. Alright, now we are into the exotics. There's only two exotic ARs, and the first one is the exotic heisted red dot, the explosive red dot. I'd probably put it at the top of the A tier. See, it was good, it did good damage, it had explosive splash damage, but it was not hit scan, and it shot slower than the normal red eye, and it had less shots. I definitely think like the other parts of this weapon made up for that, but I don't think it's enough to carry in the S tier along with like the other four weapons, in my opinion. It was definitely interesting, part of like one of the better updates we've had in recent Fortnite history. I think that update definitely like inspired like this season, which is why I think the season's so good, but I definitely think it's weird that weapons like this aren't in the game right now, considering their whole thing is that they're heisted weapons, which is interesting. I definitely think they should definitely consider bringing this as well as the heisted Twin Mag SMG back, but you know, what can you do? Solid weapon, put it in A tier, part of the best update in recent Fortnite history, and yeah. The next exotic assault rifle is the Burst Pulse Rifles. This is definitely an interesting weapon. You can only really tell it's a burst weapon when you're an ADS. It's definitely not that cool of a gimmick for an exotic. It already has like the pulse rifle like gimmick, but it kind of adds another one on top of that that's not as important, which, I mean, I definitely say it's better than the pulse rifle and like the Stark rifle, but I don't think it's like drastically better. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it was really worth being an exotic. I definitely think that they should have done more to make this weapon interesting. Maybe do like a 4-round burst on this, and that could be interesting. But you know, nothing was really crazy with this weapon. It was like really no point in really buying it. There was better exotics, there was better normal ARs at the time, so there's really no reason in purchasing an exotic burst pulse rifle. You know what I'm saying? All right, now we're into the mythic ARs. Foundations MK7. Okay, this is probably going to go straight up to SS tier. This is I think this is arguable to be the best AR they've ever added to the game. You know, has very little recoil, it's got great fire rate, great damage. It's just the MK7, but better in every way. So it's just like a really, really solid weapon. You know, it's in the vaults right now, so it's probably like the first weapon you want to pick if you're going into the vaults. It's probably like your first priority. Like, you should definitely pick this over any other weapon, even like stuff like the charged shotgun. But yeah, I definitely think it's probably like the best AR they've ever added to this game. I don't think there's really much competition. So now we're going into the Star Wars weapons. So first we got the DC-15 rifle. I'm probably going to do the same thing with all these rifles and I'll put them in D tier. The TC-15 was probably the best out of the three, but I think these two were the exact same. They're kind of like DMRs without like a scope. They don't have hit scan. They are very inaccurate. There's no real reason to pick them up over anything else. There's worse than SMGs. They're worse than normal ARs. There's no reason to pick these up. It's like, oh, I kind of want to use one because, you know, Star Wars is in the game and they're not going to be out for like another year or whatever, but they're just worse than almost every AR they ever added. The Mythic Havoc ARs. These are both going into trash. They were F tier weapons. Their Havoc ARs, there's not really much you can do with them. They're just like did one more damage than the normal one. They're really not worth getting. If you were going to go to a Relentless Retreat, you're not going there for the Havoc AR. You're going there for the Vault just because you don't want to go to Eclipse Estate or Sanguine Suites. There's really no reason you'd want to go specifically for the Mythic weapon. And the High Guard AR, kind of the same story, just there was no specific POI for them. It's like you go there to get the Vault and get all the slurp juices. There's nothing else you really want from the High Guard NPC. They're kind of just there. You get the key card and you go. You don't really pick up these weapons. They're kind of just pointless. Okay, the Herald Burst Rifle. I'm actually going to put this lower than the normal Chrome Rifle, and the one reason is the Mythic Herald Rifle was worse than the normal Mythic Burst Rifle. It was weird because I'm pretty sure this one was not in competitive, but this one was. So it was just like, why? It was interesting. It was like, why make the 1 hearts that's harder to get worse? Maybe it was because you can get it like off spawn, because it was a boss instead of having to push everyone, but I'd still argue this one's easier to get because it would be like a hot drop, I guess. I don't know, this weapon just kind of felt pointless. I don't know why they didn't do like a different mythic weapon. Maybe you could have brought back like a sideways weapon and made it like an exclusive mythic sideways weapon. I don't know, could have been interesting, but yeah, the Mythic Herald Rifle, it's probably worse than the original Chrome Rifle. Okay, the Mythic Thermal Scoped AR, I'm gonna put this at like the same level as the thermal scoped AR is here. It's just like a thermal scoped AR that does more damage. There's nothing really too interesting about it. It was kind of interesting like the end of the season when there was like a bunch of mythics, like the one area, there was like 3 there, I think. I think it was the thermal scoped AR, the Mythic Striker Burst, and the Mythic SMG, Stinger SMG. That was interesting. But, I mean, 2 of those weapons weren't really even good. So it's like, what was the point? There's only really one boss you'd rather go for, and like the other 2 were just kind of annoying if you're getting into them. Yeah, I think this mythic only really sucks because thermal AR just kind of isn't too great originally, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, I'm going to talk about all the drum guns here at once because in their current forms, they're all the same weapon. They're probably bottom of B tier. They all have the same stats. They're basically like the equivalent to like a purple drum gun, if that were a thing. They have like 24 damage when I think the blue one has 23. It's just like, they're just kind of mid. There's no reason to really run these over anything else. The Midas drum gun was originally pretty good when it was like initially added, but now in the vault, it's it's kind of trash, not gonna lie. Once they nerfed down to the Jules drum gun in Season 3, it just really wasn't worth it. The only reason you'd go there really was to get the glider gun, and yeah, the drum gun just wasn't too good. Like after it was initially added, it's why it's going in B tier. I mean, it's still a mythic weapon, it's still good, but you wouldn't really want to use it over any other AR or SMG. The mythic heavy AR, Meowscles rifle. It's kind of a similar story to like the thermal and the drum guns. It's basically just like a slightly better heavy AR. It does like 1 or 2 more damage, which isn't too interesting. There's not really much of an incentive to use this one. There were better ARs to go for, so it was like there wasn't really any point to it, if you know what I'm saying. It was mid for mythics, if you kind of get what I'm saying. Okay, so we got 3 mythic AUGs here, and they're all pretty different. So I'm going to start with the mythic Ocean Burst Rifle. This I'd probably put in A tier, top of A tier, above the heisted red dot rifle. The Mythic Ocean Burst had like 30 shots in a clip, which was normal before then, but in Season 3 they nerfed it down to 20, so having like an extra 10 shots was very nice. It did a bit more damage. It also came with a Chug Jug, which was interesting, but nothing really too special. Overall, it was nice, but I wouldn't say it's like S tier worthy, if you kind of know what I'm saying. I'd say probably the same thing with the normal Sloan burst rifle. I'd say it's slightly better because it shoots slightly faster. I just thought it was kind of weird that I had 21 shots in a clip, even though it was a 2-round burst. That was kind of weird. I feel like it would have been better if they just made like a 3-round burst, because I'm pretty sure, yeah, 3 divides into 21. It's just kind of weird that they did that. It was an interesting idea. I mean, it was still a good weapon, don't get me wrong, but the 21 shots was kind of weird. It did shoot faster, though, so that was nice, so I'd probably put it above the Ocean Burst AR. And then the final mythic AUG we have is the mythic Striker Burst. I mean, it wasn't really much different than a normal Striker Burst. Most later mythics aren't really too different from their normal versions, but it's definitely got like the same story with like the thermal AR and the heavy AR, where it's probably just going to be on the same level as the normal weapon, so that's probably why it's in S tier. It's just a really good weapon, and yeah, it's really about it. Okay, there's 2 pulse rifles, 2 mythic pulse rifles. I'm going to talk about Sloan's pulse rifle first. Same story. I'd probably put it above the exotic burst pulse rifle. It was mythic, it just did a few more damage. That was really it. There wasn't really anything too special about it. However, the overclock pulse rifle, this thing was insane. I don't think it was as good as the Foundation's MK, but this thing did so much damage so quickly. It did like normal assault rifle damage at like twice the fire rate. It was insane. It was definitely worthwhile going for the loot island. This season, I feel like the mythic there isn't really too worth it. The infiltrator pump's just not a good weapon. It lies to you about what it does. It's definitely not a pump shotgun, I can tell you that for sure. And they probably should bring something like the overclocked pulse rifle back. Yeah, we haven't really had a good loot island mythic since this weapon, so they should definitely bring something like that back. It's kind of a shame they haven't done that yet, actually. This thing should be coming back in vaults this season, so that would be nice to see. But yeah, this thing was just like really solid, really good, SS tier worthy, as you can see. And yeah, pretty good, pretty solid weapon. I'm going to save these 2 for last, so I'm going to go straight to the mythic primal rifle. The Spire Guardian's primal rifle, it's same thing with a lot of the other mythics. It's kind of like on the same level as its normal counterpart. Really no reason to use it over like an SMG or another normal AR. It's kind of pointless. You couldn't even get this in game. It was like locked to an NPC. The only way you can use it was in creative, which was kind of weird. What's the point? Like, it was kind of interesting they added it to creative because it was locked. They could add like this weapon that wasn't even in the game at all to creative, but they couldn't add like the mythic primal shotgun or the mythic recycler in creative, which was kind of weird, but you know, whatever. It's not really too big of a deal. Those weapons kind of like the same thing with with their weapon counterparts. But yeah, it's just another example of it being basically the same thing, just a bit more damage as with like the heavy AR and the thermal. Yeah, it's kind of mid for mythic at least. I'm gonna save the Scar for last. So we're gonna go on to the MK Alpha mythic. The mythic MK Alpha, probably SS tier. This weapon is same thing with the MK7, it's just like really good when compared to its normal version. It's kind of like the same thing with like the heavy AK, the heavy AR, and the thermal, where it just does a bit more damage, but I really think that a bit more damage definitely puts it on like the same level as like the Foundation's MK and the overclocked pulse rifle. I'll actually probably put the pulse rifle above the MK. Alpha. But yeah, another solid weapon. It was probably one of the better additions they added last season. A lot of things they added last season weren't too interesting. They were kind of just like recycled, and I guess this was recycled, but it was more interesting than most of the recycled stuff they did last season. So yeah, definitely nice new weapon, nice new addition. It's the only mythic MK you can get in creative for some reason. Don't ask me why they decided that was a good idea. But yeah, MK Alpha, basically same level as these other three. Okay, the final weapon, the Mythic Scar, gotta put it in SS tier, the bottom of SS tier. It was just really, really good. It not only did it do more damage, but it also had a faster fire rate. I'm pretty sure this thing could like shoot through walls. I'm pretty sure it had like a 7 fire rate or something like that, and with the normal AR can't do that. I think it only has like a 6.5 or something. This thing shreds through walls. You didn't even have to run an SMG with this thing. You could definitely have a lot of slots for meds if you're running this thing. You didn't have to worry about mini ammo. You just had to run this and a shotgun and you were good. It was just really nice to have. You also got the grappler if you use this, so it's definitely nice to have more mobility, but we're not talking about that for this video. The Mythic Scar is, or was, probably the best AR in the game for a long time, but I think it's definitely been dethroned in more recent times with weapons like the Foundation's MK and the overclocked pulse rifle. But yeah, so that's my tier list, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and also make sure to use code WATSOG in the Fortnite item shop to support me. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!